Let's talk about the Portland Trailblazers. A lot of people think they're ready to take the next step. Not me. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and if I'm wrong, I'll recant on my deathbed. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. Reminder, Basketball Monster is probably, most likely, almost certainly opening on Friday US time, probably in the morning. Don't hold me to it. I don't push the button. It should be there then, and then you can sign up for all of your leagues, all of our projections, which will consistently be updated. All of the tools, it links directly to your league, whatever your settings are, points, categories, whatever the categories you have in there, it is all projected out and will all sync up to your league. Did I tell you to double bang? I think I did. Anyway, double bang again. If you haven't, let's talk Blazers. We're talking Blazers. It is the one and only Mike Richman here to talk about this Portland team, which I mentioned in the intro, Mike. There's a lot of people thinking, oh, yeah, they really got it back on track last season. They're looking up. Things are looking great. They're going to be pushing for some, maybe a play-in, maybe the playoffs. I'm not as convinced of that, but remains to be seen. They're making moves. They're making decisions. They did a trade that sent Anfernee Simons out, and a lot of people look at that trade and the immediate response was, oh, look at that. They've cleared out all of this space in the backcourt. I don't know that that's exactly true, because what did they do? They traded out a point guard shooting guard for a point guard shooting guard who they also, in the initial trade, gave up 2 picks in that trade. Obviously, that hasn't happened because of medicals, but they gave up 2 picks for a guy on a longer contract. So I don't think they didn't trade for Jrue Holiday to not play him. So what happens now? We saw Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson come off the bench for big chunks of last season, while Simons and Toumani Camara started out of position. And all we've done is swap Scoot out for Jrue. Not Scoot, we swapped Simons out for Jrue Holiday. Not even to mention Damian Lillard, who will be on the books for the season. With their next season is the rotation. That's a separate story. So what the hell's going on with this rotation? What are they planning on doing? Because we're going to see a situation here where I think there are 7 players who easily, you could argue, can be starters across the starting 5, meaning 2 won't. So what's the plan in the backcourt here?
So I am with you. I think they traded for Jrue Holiday in order for Jrue Holiday to start in the backcourt. I would be pretty surprised if Jrue Holiday is a bench player this season. Will he transition to that role as he ages? Maybe, but I would be pretty surprised if Jrue Holiday is not a starting guard this year. He's not really a point guard, so I don't think you would want to call him a 1. But the question is, in my eyes, Jrue's a starter, and there are 3 other starting positions that are a lock. That would be Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija at the forward spots, and Donovan Clingan at center. So really, what we're talking about with, if you believe my Jrue guess here, you're right, 7 guys for 5 spots. So we're really talking about the last 2 starting spots: Jerami Grant, Scoot Henderson, and Shaedon Sharpe. Sharpe came on last year and was pretty good, but then he also got benched for not playing defense, and then they took off and had their best stretch of the season when he was a bench player. And when he was a bench player, they started Jerami Grant alongside Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija. So, I don't know what they're going to do, but I do believe Jrue Holiday is your starting guard of some flavor to begin the season.
Yeah, look, he's not going to necessarily, I don't think, play big minutes or anything because of his age. He's not going to be playing 36 minutes tonight. But again, they intentionally took on Jrue and all that money in the extension, and they gave up assets in order to do it. They didn't look at it and go, well, it's a bad contract, I guess. Yeah, we'll get the assets back. They said, no,
let's take something.
Have him. We want him. We want him here. So Simons was in the way. Simons was in the way, and now he's not, but someone else is in that same spot. Now, you mentioned that you think that Deni Avdija and Toumani Camara are going to start. I would say that Camara is a lock to start. I agree with that. I agree that Donovan Clingan's a lock to start. Remember, though, last season, Deni Avdija came off the bench for big chunks of the season until injuries. opened up that position for him in that starting group as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to all play out. Look,
he was their best player last year, though.
For the second half of the season,
it would be weird if
yes,
he came off the bench.
But for the first half, he wasn't. I thought he was quite bad for the first 2 months of the season. But then things opened up. He started, and he was their best player very clearly. But we talk about the way that teams look at things organizationally and in respect for elders and all that sort of stuff. Like, there is Jerami Grant, who, whatever you want to think about Jerami Grant, he's been there a while and he is paid a lot of money. So it is hard to see how that all works. So that brings us back to how does the organization view Shaedon Sharpe? You mentioned he was benched. He was, because he played poorly, and then he stepped up and he played better. We're going to talk about Scoot, don't worry. That's going to be in the later half of this show. But what did you see from Shaedon after that benching? How did he take it? What improvements came along that make you think that, he might be in line to get this, this coveted extra role that's available?
Yeah, he was benched for not being a good defensive player, and I'm not sure that he took meaningful steps as a defender even after the benching. But I do think in general he played better, even at the things he was good at and didn't get benched for. He struggled to shoot last year, just 31% from three, but some of that was just shot selection. He took some hard step back threes and shots off the dribble that he didn't need to take. And I think in the second half of the season, he did a better job of cutting those out. And he just finished really, really well at the rim. And that's really where he took off at the end of last season. He was, according to Clean the Glass, after the All-Star break, 77% at the rim. That's inside 4 feet, the way Clean the Glass does it. That's an elite level finisher. And that kind of matches up with what you think of him as this this really special athlete. He's a pretty good mid-range shooter. If he doesn't shoot threes, there is a ceiling on what he is as a basketball player, because he doesn't do a lot of secondary stuff and he doesn't defend. But he is, 22 years old and one of the best athletes in the league, and has some 3-level is not the right word. He has some 2-level scoring stuff that makes him intriguing.
That second half was really interesting in terms of the rim finishing, because he was hovering at 75, 76%, there was some 80, a couple of weeks where he's got 80% of the rim, which is elite sort of numbers. And that brings a lot of his efficiency stuff up, because the 3-point shot was bad for most of the season. And troublingly, it's gotten worse every year of his career. The more that he's done, the worse that it's been. And that's obviously not a great sign. You want players, sometimes the extra load can make it harder, but as they get older, you want that, the extra load versus the shooting improvement to sort of at least balance it out, not drop from 36 as a rookie down to 31 in year 3, and that's somewhat of a concern. What do you make of his passing ability? Because obviously, like you said, Jrue's not really a point guard anymore. He has been, obviously, but he's not that guy anymore. So if you're going to play someone with him, and then Deni does a lot of playmaking. Donovan Clingan doesn't do much, and Jerami Grant's playmaking and Tamani Kamara's aren't great. They're fine, whatever. But I'd want someone who's at least above average for the position there. Where does Sharpe fit into that? Did you see any growth in that area?
It's hard to say. I do think his overall passing highlights were there. There were some moments where it's oh, that is a dime. Why doesn't he pass like that? And then there's some just tunnel vision moments where it's yeah, he's going to shoot it, and he does. And that's sort of the balance with him. I do think he's probably a better passer than he's shown, but I don't think he's a natural passer. So some of it is if he has to think the game in real time, ooh, I should look for a cutter as I drive. That makes it a lot harder to be a functionally good passer. I think there is more to his ability to share the ball than we have seen, but I would not bank on him being a high-level passer, which is one of the reasons that I think Deni is an absolute lock to start, because they need the ball handling, they need the passing, and they need to just have anyone who can create a shot that isn't a really challenging 17-footer, which they've got a couple of those that can create some really challenging 17-footers.
Well, we're going to talk about one of those guys, which I assume who you're talking about in a second. We'll get to him very, very shortly. But first of all, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people, they can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks or properties or investments or $50 million contracts to forwards who might be coming off the bench. Who knows? If you don't have that full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's all-in-one personal finance finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. So if you're the widow of the former owner of a professional sports team and you're looking to make a sale of the team, which happened today, maybe you do that. Maybe Monarch can do the heavy lifting for you. Maybe it doesn't, but I'm sure it can. It could definitely do that. Monarch Money links all of your accounts in minutes, seeing all the clear data, the visuals, and the smart categorization of your spending, and so you can feel in control of your money. Don't let financial opportunity like selling your franchise for $4 billion slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Just quickly on that, Mike, any impact from ownership on the way the team is run for this upcoming season, do you think, or the sale that went through today?
I don't think immediate impact. Certainly we'll see something at some point. It'll be interesting to see when the sale is finalized and what type of decisions they make and when they have to trade all their picks for Rudy Gobert, et cetera, et cetera. But I think they've made enough decisions in terms of filling out the roster and don't have enough tradable parts unless they want to trade one of the young guards that I don't think there's going to be a dramatic change. Because how are you going to trade Jerami Grant? What are you going to do?
It's a good question.
Yeah. And is Jrue Holiday tradable? It's more tradable than Jerami Grant, but still not highly coveted in terms of what he's owed. So I don't think in the immediate term, but I do think obviously when new ownership gets involved, they're going to put their stamp on things. From what I understand about this new ownership, I bet everybody's getting fired. From what I read today about the way he ran the Carolina Hurricanes, I bet this dude is going to come in and bring his people with him. So we shall see.
That is going to be intriguing because obviously they just extended Chauncey Billups and they just extended Joe Cronin, which there was consternation about maybe some of those moves. But we already talked about the Jerami Grant stuff. Jerami Grant's got $100 million owed to him over the next 3 seasons. There are a couple of ways that I can approach the Jerami Grant discussion. I 100% respect Jerami Grant's winning. Who cares? I just want to take shots and make money. And he did that. He moved on from Denver. He went to Detroit. He then did it in Portland, signed another lucrative deal. Just March and April don't even exist on his calendar anymore. Those bits are just cut out with circles. I think he might put them onto a ransom letter and send them through to the coach and go, remember, I'm not playing here. I got holidays booked. I'm out. March and April doesn't even exist to me. He doesn't play these games. He hasn't done it for years. And then to cap that off, I respect him saying, hey, I just want the money, I want the lifestyle. Good, make that choice if you want. But the other part of it that I hate is I can't stand watching him play. What are you doing? You used to be this impactful defensive player then who worked and became a good three-point shooter, and now, Mike, what does he do? Honestly, what does Jerami Grant do that's good? Because last season didn't really shoot his threes at the level that he'd done in the past, and somehow he had a 37% field goal percentage. 37. Not threes, 37 from the field. Couldn't hit twos, and his assist numbers were in the toilet. He doesn't rebound the ball. And you're like, what does he do? He's like a spot-up three-point shooter now?
Yeah.
That's honestly,
yeah.
That's
he shot 38. He shot 38% on 2-pointers. He shot about 44% at the rim.
That's unbelievable.
He just forgot how to make twos. The previous 2 years, he was plus 40 from 3. He was maybe 40 and then 39 if you round up.
That was a real strength.
Yeah, and he is, like you mentioned, quietly Jerami Grant is one of the great developmental stories that we've had. He was a second-round pick on the process Sixers, and he turned himself into a $300 million contract guy who was an elite jump shooter. He just is not that now. And he's never done the secondary stuff. He's never been a passer. He's never been a rebounder. But I think his defense kind of waned a little bit last year. Okay. There were moments when he wasn't horrendous, but then there was just times where it's he's just out there doing his thing. Some of it's, from what I understand, was that they kind of said, you're not allowed to post up anymore. We're not going to throw it into you to post up. And he just, because that was sort of his go-to rhythm setting bread and butter, and they took that away from him sort of foundationally within the offense, he never adjusted, and he maybe just pouted the whole year. I think this year maybe he'll get a chance to reset himself, but if he has to reset himself as a bench player, it might be challenging. I think there's a world in which he's your starting small forward of sorts, power forward, I guess. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's a bench player to begin the season. I think that's more likely than not.
I think that would be a lot of questions asked, a lot of ire, I guess, from not fantasy basketball players only, but like Portland fans, if like the lineup meant that both Shaedon and Scoot were coming off the bench, so that Jerami, Tamani, Deni, Jrue, and Clingan are that starting group. He played 32 minutes a night last season, and like I said about Deni Avdija, like he was pretty poor to begin the season. He was coming off the bench, and it required injuries for him to get into that role. And then as the season progressed, Deni's usage, his assist rate, they all went through the roof, and he did the thing which enables people at times to overrate players, that when opportunity rises, then they start shooting like 46% from three. You go, well, that is an absolute star. And you know that that's going to come down. Like, it's not going to hold at the levels that it did. And yeah, with, again, Jerami Grant not playing for 2 months at the end of the season, and then everyone's sort of sitting down, there's always these weird artificial spikes. Portland's the master of this. They've done it for 3 years in a row. They know how to do it. But like, then we got this situation of longevity and seniority, and like, where does it all sort of fit? I'm not expecting Jerami Grant to have better numbers next season. Like, I think that he might have crossed that the Mendoza line of like, I think even if you tried again, I don't know if you get him back, because I don't think you're good enough anymore at this age. The question there is like, does he and the like gravitas that he may have around this organization limit actually the good lineups, or limit what Chauncey can do? Because again, you think that Deni is a lock to start, and I understand that because he was their best player down the stretch. But the Grant thing is a real question. It's a real problem to me as to how they figure it out, because even if he comes off the bench, what's he playing, 20 minutes? Like, that's probably what he should play, but I don't think he will. I don't. And then the other problem you got, Mike, and I'm sure you know this, is that after Jerami Grant, your forward depth then turns into 27% from three shooting legend Chris Murray. Like, it's not a lot happening in the forward stakes after that. So it is a really interesting spot. If you had to guess on Jerami's role, you've already said probably off the bench, but like, is it 30 off the bench? Is it 22 off the bench? Like, where are we at? Because no one's trading for $100 million of Jerami Grant.
Yeah. Well, hey, are you sure he's going to pick up that player option the last year's contract?
I guess we'll have to wait 2 years to see how that goes.
Same with Jrue. You think he's going to pick up $37 million when he's 37 years old? I do, actually, if I had to guess, as a 37-year-old.
Yeah, thanks.
Give it to me. Yeah, I actually do think if Jerami is much more likely to take one of the Scoot Shaedon spots in the starting lineup, but if he does come off the bench, I still think he does play a bunch. You mentioned it last year. Every single game he played, he started. He is in a certain, yeah.
He hasn't come off the bench ever for Portland, has he?
I do not believe so. No, he's started every game of his career. Obviously his season ends on March 13th, so like there's a month afterwards at 2JG, as we say here. But it's yeah, like I think he's like 26-ish minutes a night as a bench guy if he plays. But I worry that like you lose him, right? That he's just like what? Like he's like clearly he's capable of checking out. So like you worry that like if the reduced role maybe just means that he's just like not a useful player. That's like a tough thing to balance. His
last time coming off the bench was when he played for Denver. I also completely forgot that he played for the Thunder at one point. But yeah, he coming off the bench was the last time is in Denver, and then he started the last 5 seasons, albeit like incredibly low volume of games. But that's what he's been doing. Also, quick Jerami Grant question before we move on from Jerami. Do you know what his actual first name is, which I'm just finding out now for the first time?
Ooh, I don't.
It's Houston. Which is
okay.
Wow. What?
So all of the brothers. So he is Harvey Grant's son.
Yes.
Harvey Grant is the brother of Horace Grant.
Yes.
And there are Horaces and Harveys and H names throughout their entire family. And then Jeremy's brothers are Jerian and Jrue and Jerami.
Yeah.
And so like there are these Houston. There are the naming conventions in the Grant family are wild. That's probably a whole podcast. It's already the middle of August. I probably wasted it. This is a great end of July show, but we'll get back there sometime.
Yeah, looking at Jerami Grant's first name's actually Holden. So there you go.
They're all HJs, yeah, so to speak.
Well, I was going to transition that somehow from like, I don't even know. Like, I know Portland fans have been wanting to give the proverbial HJ to Deni Avdija quite a bit, because he was great in the second half of last season. A lot of people seem convinced that he is a very clear star. He's going to make the All-Star team. I would be, again, relatively cautious on that sort of a prediction. But like, and I'm always going to be cautious about players who make the most of their damage when there are 5 teams really trying, which is in that March and April post JG period of the season, and he did. Like, no one's denying that he did those things. So, like, in a season to begin the season when everyone's trying, when the team's got 7 starters for 5 spots, what do you think that Deni's going to bring? Because overall, his season numbers, like, they're fine. Like, overall, the numbers are fine. They are, and from a fantasy perspective, they were just absolutely mid, like right in the very middle of like almost every category, just doing stuff just a small amount above average nearly the whole way through. But we all saw what he did down the stretch. So we see what he did last season. He played 30 minutes. He had 23 usage. Like, where are you thinking? Is he going 26 usage? Is he sitting 23? Is he a primary playmaker? Is he a 20-point scorer? What do you think with everyone else trying and his team actually having a full complement of players, where do you think he sits?
Well, I do think it helps him that they just have so few dudes who can dribble. They're really limited on sort of the dudes who can dribble. It's like you mentioned Chris Murray coming off the bench. It's also like Matisse Thybulle coming off the bench.
Oh, yeah.
He's not dribbling. Mm-hmm. That guy's not dribbling. Even like coming across the timeline, whatever, coming across half court, like Shaedon Sharpe's not like sort of natural in that position, although he's certainly capable of it to some extent, but that's not what he would do. So like that'll help. I think his usage will bump up there. I think they'll give him a bunch of opportunities to be a primary creator. He shot so well after the All-Star break.
It was unbelievable.
41% from 3 over the last final 20 games, and a stretch where he was even hotter than that. I don't think that's real, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 37% three-point shooter. He averaged in the final 20 games, he averaged over 9 boards. I wouldn't be surprised if he was at 8. Like if Deni Avdija was something like 18, 8, and 5, it wouldn't surprise me even a little bit. Like that seems like a very normal season for him, just because I think the way the roster stacks up, he will still get a really big slice of the pie. Some of it is they have even fewer shooters than they had a year ago, one of the worst shooting teams in the league, and like giving Deni the ball and surrounding him with dudes who can't shoot maybe doesn't get the most out of him, and then having his pick and roll partners be Donovan Clingan and Yang Hansen is maybe not an ideal group of screen setters rolling to the rim for him. So there's some good and some bad, but I do think usage-wise, like I do think he's in the 25 usage range.
He was up at 26 post All-Star. He was like 22 before the All-Star. You mentioned the shooting numbers. He was almost 10 rebounds post All-Star. And one of the things that I noticed last season, and people will hate on me for this, and they've done it in the past, but like I'm not saying that correlation equals causation, but basically as soon as DeAndre Ayton went out, Deni Avdija's numbers all went up. Everything went up. His rebounds went up. Assists, usage, everything went through the roof when Ayton went out. Now, Ayton's not there. So I don't know if it was because Ayton was out. It just happened at exactly the same time that Ayton
I think
was
it's
out.
Actually a basketball thing, because DeAndre Ayton stands in the middle of the court. He stands at 17 feet and he needs space to catch it. And then when he rolls short to 14, 17 feet to catch it. And Deni is such a hardcore downhill right-hand driver. He needs space. Like he needs someone who will go all the way to the rim. And so like I think some of it was like they just didn't mesh well together. And while Donovan Clingan is a much, much worse offensive player, at least he like that roll goes all the way to the rim, because Donovan Clingan knows that his range is like 6 inches. So like he knows he's got to get within inside a foot. So he's getting there quickly.
I'm not going to talk about 6 inches and many of these other players as we move forward, Mike, but we are going to talk about Scoot Henderson in a sec, because he is the key one. And like I said earlier, and this is because of our professional broadcasting abilities here, is that we talked about it, and now we're coming back to circle back to Scoot Henderson, because the original thought on that trade and the Anfernee Simons trade, like, look at that, it's Scoot's time now. They have cleared it out. They've cleared the space. Scoot's here. It's his team, and then we'll see what happens with Dame the year after. But this is Scoot's opportunity, and like I think we're both expressing that skepticism. But maybe it's not. Maybe they don't play him. So what do they need to see from Scoot? Because his rookie season he was pretty bad, and then in the meaningless portion of the season, shout out to Deni Avdija and everyone else who goes off in March and April, Scoot was great as a rookie. Like he cooked in that period. He was awesome. And then he was bad again at the start of last season, and it didn't really come to fruition. And we also had Chauncey just sort of not putting him into roles and elevating him to larger playing time, all that sort of stuff. So what do we need to see from him this season to be the guy who goes, well, he's going to be one of those guys that you say is locked down that starting spot? What do we need to see from him?
The shooting needs to stay around where it was when he was good, which is like in the 36% range. Teams go under on screens. They go under on screens. So he's going to get shots. It's can you make open above the break, off the dribble 3-pointers? that's a makeable, learnable shot for guys in the league. And Scoot, who shot around 35% from three last year, he's got a chance to be an above average 3-point shooter. It's just at some point, can he turn that decent 3-point shooter, he doesn't get any respect, to getting a little respect, changing the way they guard him, allowing him to get downhill, use some of that the sort of like ability to make the defense get an advantage against the defense and use some of his passing ability. He's a good natural passer. He wants to throw passes. The thing he does best right now as a passer is just make simple reads. Like he's a very good, just like, yep, simple pass. I'm going to like this. You helped. I'm going to hit the strong side corner type of thing. I think he's going to get a chance as the starting point guard. If I had to guess, but I'm not really confident about that because like he has been worse than Shaedon Sharpe to date. But that's not always how starting lineups work.
It's not. You're right.
But he's not a good defensive player, but he's competitive on that end. He's got to cut down on the turnovers, and he's got to become a much better finisher at the basket. And if you do those things, you start to have the outlines of a quality starting point guard, which we have seen in very, very small doses from Scoot. 10 games here, 3 games there, but not a stretch of like 6 weeks, this dude can play type of stuff. And they need to see that from him in year 3.
Yeah, like the rim stuff is bad. Like he was horrendous as a rookie, like 45% at the rim. He moved up last season, but still like in the 9th percentile according to dunks and threes. He was at 53%. But there is a point guard who, Jerami Grant is intimately familiar with, who was in that same range and then blossomed to become an All-NBA player last season, and that's Cade Cunningham. Now, he took his rim numbers from the 7th percentile to the 19th percentile in his All-NBA season, Cade. I'm not suggesting that Scoot's going to do that. Scoot's also 1 year behind in terms of NBA experience of where Cade was. But Cade's problem was he couldn't finish at the rim. He couldn't figure out NBA defenses to get those shots to fall. And then he did, to a degree, and then we see what happens. And everything opened up around him, and it became a lot easier for him. Now, that is Scoot's major problem. Like, for the level of athleticism and speed and how good his handle is, he should be able to do that better. Now, whether that's just a craft thing, whether that's just an experience thing, I don't know. But that's the thing to me. Like, the shooting, whatever. Like, he was at 36 last season. If your point guard can pass like Scoot can, has the speed and the handle that he can, and he's 36% from 3, I think you're all right with that. I think you live with that. I think that's right. Totally reasonable, right? As long as the other players around make sense. If you're finishing at the rim at 51%, then forget it. Like, why? Even if someone dribbles past him, like if he dribbles past him, they're not going to go in enough. So it doesn't really matter that much. That is the key for me. Defensively, how did you think that Scoot held up during the season? Because we know that Chauncey's got sometimes a bit of an old school mentality. He's an old school point guard, played in those Pistons teams that valued defense that much. And we'd be sort of benching Shaedon Sharpe for defensive problems. Was there issues with Scoot and his defense that may have sort of held him back somewhat?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, so here's my read on it. He played Anfernee Simons over Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, that's true.
If it was about overall defensive impact, but I think some of it was that the read on Simons was that he gives some stuff. He has more value on offense because of the off the dribble shooting, and that they thought his issues on offense or on defense were not effort based. He just sucked at it, right? He's just bad at it because he's bad at it, but he still tried. And I think with the youngsters, particularly Shaedon Sharpe, it was a lack of effort. Scoot got better effort wise. I think actually Scoot made strides defensively. He's 6'2", It's just you're never going to be. It's going to be hard to be awesome on defense at that size, and particularly if you're kind of, going from a low baseline. So I do think he was okay. I think he's competitive, and I think he's into it. And some of it is just maybe the nature of just aging in the league and understanding patterns and stuff like that. But I think his issues are on that end are not as glaring as Sharpe's are. But also, he's just not nearly as good an offensive player as Shaedon has been to date. So what are you going to do?
I'm going to chuck in a little bonus question here because we already talked that we're assuming that Donovan Clingan is the starting center because it's not going to be Dwop Reith, it's not going to be Rob Williams, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Yang Hansen immediately. But I guess my question is for Donovan, who had a couple of injuries last season, knee issues and ankle issues, eventually took over from DeAndre Ayton, but he was the third string center for big chunks of last season, and it just seemed that his conditioning didn't allow him to play what would be considered regular starting minutes. He played 20 minutes a night, but even in starts, he'd play 26 or 27. He'd get to 30 occasionally, but he'd be at 23 on some nights. Did you see improvements in Clingan's conditioning? Do you think that we're looking at like a traditional 30-minute a night guy, or is it going to be, hey, we've got these 7 starters, so we're going to go smaller with Jerami or Deni playing the 5 at times and mixing in Rob Williams there, and we're keeping Donovan at 24 and getting 12, 15 of Young in there as well?
Yeah, after DeAndre Ayton got hurt, Donovan Clingan averaged 25 minutes a game, a little over 25.3, I think, minutes per game. That's where I guess he would be at 25 to 27. When Yusuf Nurkic was here, here being my basement, when Yusuf Nurkic was played for the Portland Trail Blazers, he over his 6 seasons, he played about 27 minutes a night. Yep. And I think similar build, similar conditioning stuff, similar, like if you get to a certain point, you're just not getting, like, if you play him 31 minutes, you're just not going to get as good of minutes those final few. So my view on Clingan is that he maxes out around 27, 28 would be my guess. And so then you got 20 other center minutes. I wouldn't be stunned if Yang Hansen is playing a bunch of minutes early in the season, the way they have talked about him. And boy, you already know, my viewership numbers hope that that's the case. But
he's no Kai Sotto, but like he's there.
Yeah. Listen, I've learned this summer, Josh, China is a huge country. There are very, very many citizens. Very many citizens. It's a very large. I didn't realize that till this year. But so I think they'll go small. It's just so hard to go small in the West. There's just not that many teams, even off the bench these days, that go small. So I think they'll try to mix in Rob a little bit. I think you might see Duop, and I think you're going to see maybe a little bit of small ball to mix things up, but not a ton. But I do think Clingan is like a 26 to 28 minute a night guy. Yeah,
I don't think you can really push much further than that, at least at this point. He also saw his efficiency dip significantly when he did move into the starting line. Now, some of that was some of the end of season shenaniganizing where we just, he takes some threes. Let's just see what happens, right? So some of that has to be baked into that stuff, but like his true shooting dipped under 56% as a 7 foot, 6-inch legend. You're taking shots at the rim, like that's, and by 6-inch, I don't mean he's 7'6". I mean he's shooting within 6 inches. Again, professional callback from before, Mike. That like you would hope that your true shooting sits at slightly higher than league average instead of being under it. It's not necessarily it's a make or break year, because I don't think that's the case. But like trading up to grab a guy that no one thought would be taken in the top 20 who plays your same position 1 year later should give a little bit of a like, hey, that's a bit of a kick in the dick, and go, you might want to show something that really stamps your authority on this position. Or is he someone, because again, even in college, Clingan was like a low minute player. Like he wasn't a high minute player that just demanded that center spot and just took over. He just played low minutes. Yeah, considering how high of a draft pick it was. You don't see many guys coming with 25 minutes a night or whatever it was he played in college. So that is something for us to monitor.
22, I think, his sophomore year. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Even less.
It was incredibly low.
Can I throw a comparison out to you that is unfair, but I think it's something to consider? Is the Derek Lively Daniel Gafford pairing is the like platoon of centers where neither of them plays a bunch, but you maybe the Blazers view the Hansen and Clingan future as like, we have 48 minutes of centers and we will figure it out from there, and neither of them are ever going to be good enough or productive enough that they get too much money, so we can always give them $17 million and have it work forever. That's kind of my read on what they would do, because Clingan's pretty damn good on defense. It's just he just doesn't do anything on offense right now. So and Hansen's a 20-year-old like total mystery, so I don't want to bank on him being Daniel Gafford just yet, but or maybe he's Derek Lively, but whatever. I think there's a world where they're the center platoon of the future.
The Mavs are also, to bring it full circle again, apparently they're interested in maybe getting Yusuf Nurkic into that mix of 17 centers on that roster and just go with an all center lineup. Nurkic running the point. I don't know. They're looking to do something anyway. We'll see what they're up to. But have you guys sorted out how you're going to be referring to Yang Hansen? Obviously, with the Chinese naming protocols, his surname is Yang, is it? Now I'm confusing myself. Yeah, his surname is Yang, but you say it first, so it's Yang Hansen, but his surname is Yang.
I was told by a Chinese listener, I believe an expat who's lived in China and actually worked with Hansen in Qingdao, that in Hansen, Yang is like super Western and super American to just call someone by their surname and perhaps disrespectful. And so the best thing that I could do as an American was to either call him every single mention Yang Hansen or Hansen, which is the more familiar. So I am on my show. I'm going Hansen, which is what Chauncey and Joe Cronin have referred to him as well, is how they address him. I think it implies a little bit of a familiarity that I simply do not have with him, but I will just go make close friends with him when he is in the locker room. When I go to a game, be like, hey, bud, can I call you this? And then it'll be much more appropriate on the podcast.
How's your Mandarin? Have you been brushing up?
Yeah, it's not great, man. but
so I studied Mandarin for 4 years, so I'll help you out. I've got you. You did it 4 years. I was a great Mandarin student, and that's how you get that little familiarity, so you can call him Hansen. But of course, if you want to hear all of the Hansen mentions over on Locked Up Blazers, Mike is going to be dropping it just continually. And he also teased to me before we went on air that he was going to be devoting just a huge amount of episodes to the possible return of Justin Minaya coming up. So always be ready for that. Mike, thank you again for coming on the show and talking with the appropriate level of levity and seriousness, but also just keeping the expectations in check about this Portland team.
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl or whatever, they're going to do it. See you guys there.
See you there. So yeah, one of the most annoying teams to try and figure out what they're doing, to project all that sort of stuff. The next show that I'm doing, again, unless there's natural disasters or something else happens, acts of God perhaps, that impact me, is going to be a team that is even more annoying or even more frustrating. Can you guess who it is? Yeah, it's the Washington Wizards, because look at their roster. Try to play the 240 game. Try to figure out what is going on that team, because it's unbelievably annoying. We're going to talk about them tomorrow. I am not looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to getting the clarity around that squad. If you want to make sure you never miss out on any second of Wizards talk or Blazers talk or Mavericks or Lakers or, I don't know, what's another team? The Raptors. No, don't worry about that one. But any other team, you can hear it and you subscribe. Double bang, audio, video, comments. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.